Now in example 4, we're going to solve this same quadratic equation in multiple ways and see which way you find easier, which way you find harder, which way will work for some problems, which way won't work for other problems. So let's start first by graphing it. So in order to graph it, you have to graph the related function. So we have to make one side equal to 0, just like we have to do with factoring. It has to equal to 0. And quadratic formula has to equal to 0. So we can use the same step on all three of those. So I'm minus 12 from both sides, so I get 3x squared minus 5x minus 12 equals 0. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph the related function. Instead of using 0, I'm just going to say f of x, or you could say y if you want to, equals 3x squared minus 5x minus 12. Well, I can graph this. I'd have to find my axis of symmetry, my vertex, just like we've done before, but we can graph this. So let's type that in. We'll use decimals to graph this. We're going to say f of x, or we'll say y, equals 3x squared minus 5x minus 12. I'm going to double check because my hand, yep, that's what the problem is. And notice my answers are where it crosses. So I get negative 1.333 and 3. So negative 1.33, that's negative 4/3. So in other words, x equals negative 4/3. And would we say the other one was 3? Now you're going to find out in all the other ways we do this problem, we should get that same solution. Let's do it by factoring now. Now when we factor it, we still start the same way. 3x squared minus 5x minus 12 equals 0. And then I want to factor this. Well, there's a bunch of things that go into 12, so I'm going to use that British method to factor here. So I know I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 36 and are 5 apart. What two numbers would that be? Well, in one, it would be, let me see here. Oh, 9 and 4, right? And I want the middle one to be negative. So negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5. So I'll go 3x squared minus 9x plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. And then we can we'll factor 2 at a time here. So I'll factor 3x squared minus 9x. Well, 3x goes into both of those, so I get 3x times x minus 3. And then 4 goes into both of my terms, and I get x minus 3 equals 0. So I'll factor out the x minus 3. So x minus 3 times 3x plus 4 equals 0. Set each one equal to 0, so I'll say x minus 3 equals 0, which means x equals 3. 3x plus 4 equals 0, minus 4 from both sides. And we get 3x equals negative 4 divided by 3. X equals negative 4/3. So, just like I said, my answers are 3 and negative 4/3, just like we did when we graphed it. Let's do it by completing the square. That's the one we don't have to make it equal to 0. So I'll go back here, up here, 3x squared minus 5x equals 12. But remember, you can't have a number, your leading coefficient has to be 1 when you complete the square, so I'll divide everything by 3. So I'll go x squared minus 5/3 x equals 4. Then I'll complete the square. I'll go over here and I'll take half of my middle term, which is negative 5/3, and I'll square that. Well, half of negative 5/3 is negative 5/6. I'll square that. So I'm going to add 25. Whoops. Add 25 over 36 to both sides. So I'll get x squared minus 5/3 x plus 25 over 36 equals 4 plus 25 over 36. Now I can factor that. I know that factors 2 because I already know it's negative 5/6. So I'll say x squared, or not x squared, I'll say x minus 5/6 squared. And then I need a common denominator, don't I? So my common denominator is 36. I take 36 times 4. I get 144 plus 25 all over 36. And then that's x minus 5/6 squared. Let's simplify that a little bit. So I get 144 plus 25 gives me 169 over 36. I'm not going to simplify that, although I can't, because I notice I can take the square root. So then I get x minus 5/6 equals plus or minus the square root of 169 is 13. The square root of 36 is 6. So then I will just add 5/6 to both sides. So then I get x equals 5/6 plus or minus 13 over 6. And just like we did on the others, I'll do it twice. 5 plus 13 is 18 over 6, which simplifies to 3. And then 5 minus 13, that would be negative 12. 5 minus 13, something's not right there. Be negative 8. Sorry about that. So it'll be negative 8 over 6, which would be negative 4 over 3. So just like the others, we get 3 and negative 4/3. Finally, let's do it by completing the square. I'm not completing the square, but using the quadratic formula. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So x would be, in this case, x would be 3. Or b would be negative 5, so it would be 5, because I'm looking up here. B is negative 5, which is 5, plus or minus b squared, would it be negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative 12. All over 2 times 3. Okay, so let's simplify that. So 5 plus or minus 25 plus 4 times 3 is 12 times 12 is 144. All over 2 times 3 is 6. So then we'll get x equals 5 plus or minus 25 plus 44 is 169 all over 6. So x equals 5 plus or minus 13 all over 6. 5 plus 13 is 18 over 6, which is 3. 5 minus 13 is negative 8 over 6, which is negative 4/3. So we get 3 and negative 4/3.